Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello. Yeah, so I hope everyone is doing okay. Thumbs up, please, if you are on your screen, so we know. Hello. Yeah, we have special guests. No, we have special attendees. Attendees. Yan, yan. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar for MatE 15. No, so this first webinar, our objective is to showcase, to introduce you to two of our inspiring alumni, and we'll have them discuss their journey, their materials engineering journey, what they've been through, and maybe we can pick a thing, um, one or two key points, no, that can help us inspire to really pursue materials engineering, the materials engineering program. Okay, so by the way, we're also live on YouTube. So if you want, you can also rewatch this later. But we'll have instructions later on what we'll do for our MatE 15 class. But for the first 2 hours, let's just, it's 1 hour lang pala tayo. For 1 hour, no, let's enjoy listening to and meet, no, our two of our alumni. So without further ado, I think we can start. No, Mitch, Sir Jeff, okay. Okay. So our first speaker is Engineer Ralph Quason. No? So meron tayong bio notes sa next page. So Ralph obtained his Bachelor of Science in Materials Engineering degree. Baliktad. Bachelor of Science degree in Materials Engineering in 2017 from UP. And currently, he is in his final term for the Master of Science in Material Science and Engineering program in UP Diliman as well. So he has an extensive work experience both in academic research and in the industry. So his interests are on designing materials for recyclability and on the development of mechanical recycling techniques or processes for hard to recycle plastics. Maybe he can talk about this more later. No, he was able to apply this in his master's thesis and in his role as the R&D and recycling manager for the Plastic Flamingo Philippines Incorporated. Later, he founded his own startup, Domestics Philippines, that develops modular geodesic dome shelters from plastic wastes. Domestics was one of the finalists for the Lee Kuan Yew Global Business Plan competition back in 2020 and for the Tech Panther Philippines Speech competition in 2020. His other former roles include being a science research specialist to ang daming S for the Aerocom project of UP Diliman. He was also a quality manager for EMMA, the sleep company, and an operations graduate trainee for Philip Morris Fortune Tobacco Corporation Incorporated. He's about to start his new role as the Technology Solutions Manager for WasteX WasteX Private Limited, a one-stop waste valorization solution for agricultural producers in Southeast Asia. So let us all give a warm round of applause and let us all welcome our first speaker, Engineer Ralph Quason. Take it away, Ralph.
Thank you, Sir Ken, for the introduction. Made me sound so old. All right. Let me start let me share my screen first, so we could start. So today I'm basically just gonna be telling you a story. So I'll just walk you through what I've been doing for the past 5 years now. Yeah. So to start, I guess we'll start at the beginning. So back when I was still in college, I have a singular goal. Like I have no other plans but to graduate. So yun lang. I'm focused on that one singular goal, and I have this notion before na once you graduate, you will be presented with a lot of opportunities. So in this talk, I'm trying to illustrate those opportunities or trying to make an analogy between opportunities and doors. So parang my thinking before was after you graduate, you will be presented with a lot of beautiful doors that could lead to good things that could lead to a good career, a good job, pay well, and so on. And yeah, and part of the reason why I was thinking like this is because back then my father would always tell me na once you graduate from UP, you don't need to look for a job, the job will look for you. So that gave me that kind of confidence na, oh, I just need to graduate and everything else will come after. But that's not the case actually. It's not the case for me. It's not the case for a lot of other people that I know. I'm maybe for some others it's like that, but for us it wasn't. And what actually happened was most of us were presented with a single door, well, some two doors, and they're not like ornately decorated doors. They're very simple doors, hard to sort of identify one it's hard to figure out which one is better from the other because they all look similar. They're all plain and simple. So, but for me, actually, my journey did not start with graduation. It started a little bit before, and I would say it's not this internship program, the Encompass program. It wasn't a door, but it was more like a ramp or a hallway that led me to a door. So I decided to start with this because it became the foundation of everything that would come after. Back when I was in college, I wasn't a student who's very involved with what happens after college. So I wasn't thinking that far ahead. As I said before, all I really wanted was just to graduate. So I wasn't, like doing internships left and right, trying to make my CV look good or trying to make me more attractive to employers. So that wasn't part of my strategy back then. But I'm very lucky because I'm surrounded by friends, by classmates who are actually concerned about their future. So I'm usually just pulled into things like this. And back in college, there was one instance, there was a job fair in UP, and a friend of mine asked me to come with him and submit resumes for internships. I went with him not because I wanted to join an internship program, but because I heard there were freebies there. They were distributing notebooks, pens. So that was my goal. And I think Nestle was giving out free chocolates. So I said, I'm not doing anything. So, and he was the one who made my resume even. So I did not prepare my own resume. Not even sure if I had one before. I just filled out the sign up sheets. But anyway, I signed up for this internship program. It's called Encompass. Their booth was it looks really good. I felt like they spent a lot of money on building the booth. So I was very, very interested. And the notebook was really good as well. So I signed up. I took all of the tests, and surprisingly, I got in. And it changed. I mean, this is quite cliche, but yeah, it did change my life because it made me aware of opportunities that would come after. It also built my confidence. Before, I wasn't a very good speaker. I'm not saying that I am a good speaker now, but I was very shy before. Like, I wouldn't speak in a gathering like this in front of people, or at least online. So yeah, enough about that. One thing I would like to add also, that's at that time it's not common to have paid internships, and Encompass was a paid internship, and my allowance that time was not much. We're paid handsomely in Encompass. Well, for an intern, it's a good amount of money, so it was a very good experience. But more than that, it led to a door. So as I was saying earlier, it was like a ramp or a hallway, but it led to a door, and that door is my first job at Philip Morris. So Encompass is the flagship internship program of Philip Morris International. And because I guess my performance was quite good, it was all right. They offered me a role, so I became a graduate trainee at Philip Morris. It was my first job after college. It was a very, very fun experience because there were 27 of us. There were 27 graduate trainees. So I was with people my age. We were in the same, stage in life. So we all could relate to each other. And the program was designed around your growth. So essentially, the purpose of the graduate training program is to mold you into a leader within the company. So after, I think it was 18 months, you will have a more permanent role, ideally a leadership role. So I was already working by this time, and this is when I get to really think about what I want to do with my life. And I realized I don't want to sit. I mean, it was a good experience, but it wasn't the experience that I was looking for at that time. So I was mostly, handling projects, presenting, making a lot of Excel sheets. And I feel like I could do more. I could contribute something to society, something more, impact not just myself and the company, but the community as well. And it's not something that I could do within the role that I have at PMI. So it got me thinking. And then eventually I realized that I wanted to be an entrepreneur because being an entrepreneur, I could leverage my engineering background, my engineering training. I could develop things, maybe even create inventions that would impact or make people lives better. So that's what I wanted to do. It wasn't a very concrete, you know, thing yet. It's just an idea, but it's enough for me to quit my job. So that's what I did. I left without any plans. And I know I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I did not know where to start. So it's sort of like, again, with the analogy, it's sort of like hitting a wall or like, so before I was presented with a door, now it's just a brick wall. And so now I don't know what to do. So I need to figure out what to do with my life. And if there's no door, my thinking was, then maybe I could build a door that I actually want. So dinoraemon ko siya. Lalabas ako ng door to anywhere. And that anywhere actually led me to where I started, back in school. So I went back to school. I enrolled myself into grad school. And it was a very different life than working in corporate. So it was a lot slower, not really slower, but it gave me like it was a slower pace compared to working in the corporate world. And I was able to do something that I was passionate about, and that recycling. I skipped, some parts, but along the way I was able to figure out that I wanted to focus on this field, the field of plastic recycling, because I saw that the plastic waste crisis is really a big issue that needs to be solved. And I feel like as a materials engineer, it's something that I could help solve. So back then, there isn't, as far as I know, there wasn't any, research into recycling in Triple M. But I talked to my advisor and I was able to convince her that this is something worthwhile to do. And now actually it's one of the things that we're doing at the lab that I'm a part of. So we did everything from scratch. So we were able to figure out how to, get all of these things, have an extruder, where to get supplies and all that. And yeah, eventually I did start doing research. And at the same time, because I have a lot more free time than I used to, I was able to sort of figure out or have a hobby. And that hobby was boxing and Muay Thai. Well, a little bit later, Muay Thai. And I felt like at this point in my life, this was the most balance I have. I have a good balance between my social life, I'm my research as well. I am in a very good mental state. So it was good times. But all good things will come to an end. I'm just joking. But um after 2 years of doing this, um eventually I will need to graduate. But then, so I started my master's in 2018 and I was supposed to graduate in 2020, but then the pandemic happened. So I have nothing else to do than just to wait at home and do nothing. But luckily, I was presented with, well, another door, with the continuing with the door analogy. Um, when I was in grad school, I was consulting with for a French startup. It's called the Plath Flamingo. At that time, I was doing it for free essentially because they don't have the funding yet. But luckily, around 2020, they received funding and they invited me to join full time. So I joined the team. At that time, there was only, well, I'm the third member, so there were three of us. Um, Two of the other guys were in France. I'm the only one in the Philippines, so I'm the only one who could, actually do things in here. So it was very, very challenging because I don't have a, sorry, I can't say that here, but I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue of how to, build a company from scratch. So I I'm not even familiar with like big equipment, so I don't know how to operate them. I included this photo right here because when I saw this, I was very, very intimidated. Like, how will I operate this thing? I'm used to I know how to operate a small scale extruder, but not like an industrial extruder. So, but I don't know. You just learn things on the fly, and eventually, after 6 months, we were able to build the plant. One funny thing actually is, since I'm the first employee, and eventually we needed to hire a COO. I actually interviewed the COO. So I interviewed my future boss. I had to because there's no other one who will interview her. Yeah, but we're good friends now. But yeah, it's just a funny thing. It's not all the time that you get to interview your boss. So it was a good experience, but I felt like it was very stressful. I'm not gonna lie. It's normal for a growing startup to be that stressful, but I felt like um my whole my whole life at that time was just all about work. There was even a time when my dreams were about work also. So imagine my real life and my dreams were all about working. So that's how consumed I was with work. Eventually I was burned out. Like I figured, I don't want this kind of stress at 24. So I wanted to do something less stressful, and another opportunity presented itself. So I was presented with another door, and I joined Emma. Now this is my next role. And yes, it was definitely a lot less stressful, but it was a good experience as well. I learned a lot. I had a really great team. I built really good. I had good friends. Well, they're still my friends. So I have good friends from Emma. But since I was coming from, a very fast-paced startup environment, and then all of a sudden I'm working from home, it's a lot more chill. It's, it was like I was very stressed at the Plath, but the work sort of feeds my soul. At Emma, it's a typical corporate job. It was it pays the bills. It doesn't give you a lot of stress, but at the same time, it's not something that sort of excites me. And I was really looking for that excitement after working at Emma for a while. So it just so happens that um, going back to the lab is allowed again at Triple M. I decided, why don't I finish my MS? So I decided to again resign from my role at Emma. I went back into grad school. But before that, I also did a lot of side things. So I at this time I had an idea of recycling marble offcuts and marble dust into new surfaces. So we were doing this on the side. I was doing this with a good friend. I was also even I think we had a no we had a lasagna business with my roommate. So we were selling lasagna at the time. So I was really doing a lot of different things. But yeah, I decided to just go back into grad school and just finish and get my degree. But instead of focusing on my degree, I got involved again with another different endeavor of mine. Actually, I started this during grad school, but I wasn't able to focus on it. So I decided to devote more time into this. So it's a startup called Domestics, I think was introduced earlier in the intro. But essentially, what we're doing is we're building geodesic domes from recycled plastic waste. So I did this for a while, tried to make the prototype. But then I realized I'm not sure if I'm ready to lead a company into greatness. Or I mean, I realized that there are some things that I need to learn first. Because I know the technology behind it, but running a company is a different thing altogether. And I don't want to just wing it like what I usually do. I wanted to really be prepare for it. So I've decided to just shelf the startup for now. I mean, I could always circle back to it sometime in the future. Or if it's not relevant anymore in the future, there will be other ideas that would come. So I've decided to just take up pause, put all of our activities on hold, and do other things. So I was thinking, what do I do now? I need a job. I need to be able to support myself. So I applied for another role and I ended up joining a project at Triple M. So now I'm making ballistic shields or ballistic materials for the military. And it was also a lot of fun. I had a lot of learnings from doing this. But then another door presented itself. And I'm really hoping that this is that door that I would really stick to. And this will be my new role. I will be joining this company in the next few weeks. I think I will be starting around July 11th. And the company is called WasteX. So WasteX is a Singapore-based startup. Essentially, what we're doing is um, we're a one-stop shop where we provide solutions to our clients. Our clients are anybody who has waste or our waste producers. Right now, we're focusing more on biomass. So what we do is um, they come to us, or maybe we approach them, and then we give them a solution to valorize their waste or to make value out of it. So essentially, that's very in line with what I've been doing so far. But before, I was only focusing more on the plastic waste. Now it's literally any type of waste. And yeah, and I'm really looking forward to be joining them full time. So yeah, so I've been talking a lot about what I've been doing, but what's really the point? So my point actually is this. So I guess that whole story really, it's just an intro to this for. So I wanted to say this because nobody told me this before. So I was hoping I could be the one to tell you this now. So we have four important things here. You have one thing is a hobby, a job, a career, and a vocation. So what is a hobby? A hobby is something that gives you pleasure. It makes you happy. It doesn't need to give you money or it doesn't have to make money. It just need to make you happy. That's a hobby. For me, that hobby is boxing. It makes me happy. I don't earn from boxing. I actually spend a lot of money just to box, but it makes me happy. So that's my hobby. And among these four things, the only thing that you really need to have is a job. You need to have a job because we live in a material world. Let's be honest, you can't live here without money unless you have somebody supporting you. So you need a job. And you don't have to love your job. You just need to you just need to do it. Like you do the job, they give you money, that's it. Well, unless you're being manipulated or you're being abused, then definitely leave that job and look for other jobs. But a job is that simple. It's just something to, to support your lifestyle, essentially. And you could have a life outside of your job. Your life doesn't have to revolve around your job. By the way, I got this from TikTok, so this is not original. And then next is a career. So a career is essentially just a job that you're passionate about. You don't have to have a career, but it's good to have one because with a career, you get to do a lot of things extra. Like you're ready to put your life on the line. You're willing to work. Well, it depends, but I'm getting a lot of reactions from my live audiences here. But yeah, you're willing to work extra hours because it's something that you're passionate about. You feel like it's a mission. So for me, I had a job before, but I realized that a job doesn't really work for me. It's hard for me to have that boundary between what makes me, what my passion and my job. But for some people, it works. So for me, I'm trying to build a career. And it took me a really long time, and I'm still trying to get there. That's the reason why I've been doing a lot of different things. I've been trying a lot of different things because I wanted to build a career, and building a career is not easy. I'm not even sure if my new job now will be a career, but at least I'm passionate about it. And we'll see in the future if it ends up to be a career. And the last thing is a vocation. I think among the four, a vocation is I think it's the holiest because it's sort of like a divine intervention. It's a calling. It's like the universe telling you that you need to do this. So with a vocation, it's not something that could be given to you. Well, somebody could give you a job, somebody could give you a career, but nobody can give you a vocation. But at the same time, nobody can take it away as well. So for example, you love writing. Writing is your hobby. And that hobby turned into a vocation because you feel like it's something that you could contribute to the world. The things you write, it will remain after you die. People will read it, be inspired. So that's a vocation. It doesn't have to earn, it doesn't necessarily be something that could give you money. It could just be something that you do because you like it and you're passionate about it. So your vacation doesn't need to be a job or a career, but it could also be a job. It could also be a career. So for example, I guess say Taylor Swift, she's a songwriter, a singer. I mean, she's been doing that since she was a little girl. She likes writing songs. So that started as a hobby, maybe turned into a vocation, but she was able to make a career out of it. So my point is, as you grow older, or maybe, well, now you're in college. Maybe your singular goal, like me, is to graduate. But after college, you don't have to rush things. I mean, it takes time to figure out what you wanted to do with life. So my point is, you will be presented with a lot of doors. Sometimes there won't be any door. But the thing is, you need to have a guiding principle. You need to have something that will that will guide you through, the complexities of life. And for me, that's my guiding principle would be two things. Um, the pursuit of happiness. That's essentially what guides me. As long as it makes me happy, I'm good. The second thing is money because I'm practical also. I can't eat happiness. No, I mean, I'm happy, but I will be going to sleep hungry. I mean, it's a difficult thing. So, there needs to be a balance. So for me, that's money and happiness. So as long as it makes me happy and I can provide for myself, money is like a weird word to use, but yeah, as long as you can support yourself, you can support your family, and it brings you happiness, then that's it. That's the thing. That's the right thing to do. It doesn't necessarily have to be something related to where you started, but if you could leverage what you have learned and build a career or I don't know a vocation out of it, then that would be nice. Yeah. So I'll update you guys what happens in the next few months if this will turn out to be a career or is it just another job. But maybe just to sum everything up, never be afraid to try doing things. Um, sometimes you can feel lost, but for me, just do something. Like it doesn't necessarily have to make sense at that point in time, but if you don't make anything, then you won't move forward. So if you're stuck, then just try to, I don't know, write something, try to build something, do something that feels natural to you. And little by little, you will be moving forward. So I'm saying that because I know a lot of people are stuck in life right now. They feel like they're on a limbo. And if you do nothing, you will stay on that limbo forever. So just do something, I don't know, put yourself out there, try to do something little by little, and eventually you'll figure it out. So I hope you get to learn something from my very lengthy talk. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Ralph, for that inspiring talk. No? So, kita nyo, ang daming ginagawa ni Ralph. No? So, at this point, no, we can accommodate questions. So if you have questions for Ralph, any questions, you can type your question in the chat box, or you can actually raise your hand. We'd love to hear your voice. No? So let's make this webinar interactive. Any questions? Questions are welcome. Sige, while you're thinking of a question, I actually have one question here. It's not a quiz, Ralph. How do you feel like, how do you feel your materials engineering program helped you with your journey? How do you feel like the program, how does it fit with your journey?
Yeah. So for me, it's sort of like, how did it? Well, most of the things that I've been doing has really been within the confines of materials engineering. I really tried to maximize the learnings that I've had during college, even during grad school. But in general, I guess it's just a tool in my toolkit, because in the many things that I've been doing, it's not all about MatE. For example, if say with domestics, yes, there is a certain aspect that that is coming from MatE, like developing the material and so on, but it's not all about that. It needs to be complemented with something else. So I guess maybe you're asking this question because you're wondering, will this be helpful in the future? Like, am I, all of these things that I'm studying, will it be helpful to me in the future? And the answer is yes. It's not apparent right away. Like, for example, when I was for example, I can imagine myself sitting down in a classroom. I was listening to my prof. He was talking about, say, something like thermodynamics. And I was thinking, this, math. But eventually you'll find out the simplest things or the simplest problems in the industry could actually be related to something you learn in school. You just need to keep that learning in your toolkit, and it will come in handy sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Yeah, some students are asking if they can send the questions to me directly. Yeah, you can send your questions directly to me and I can read it. Okay, we have a phone-in question. Phone-in. What specific work did you do in Plath, and why was it stressful for you?
Okay, let me think about it. Will I be okay? Anyway, my role, well, my official title was recycling and R&D manager, but I was employee number one, so I was involved with essentially everything. So we needed to launch the company. So my well, the job I was hired for was to build the plant from A to Z. So that involves buying all of the equipment, setting up the plant, etc. And then I also needed to develop the formulation for the lumbers. So we did that. But I was also doing a lot of different things like signing checks, going to the bank, applying for permits. So I was very involved with everything. And that's what made it very stressful because I was spreading myself too thin. It was just mostly me and Erica, the COO at that time when I was working there. So yeah, but it's something that I expected, I anticipated, but since probably if it was in a different time, not during the COVID, since this was all in 2020. If that happened in a different time, maybe I coped better. But yeah, I was just really stressed and I wanted a way out. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. I was tired and I wanted a new kind of work that could give me money but don't give me that kind of stress. So that's what I did. I left.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Okay, If you have other questions, you can still type your questions here. Oh yeah, sige. One last question, Ralph, before we present the your certificate. Okay, were you not afraid of not having the same opportunity again every time you wanted to quit your job?
Oh, I was very afraid. Actually, it gives me a lot of anxiety because I feel like, I'm giving up something that is good. Because if I'm being honest, most of the companies that I've left, they're very good companies. Like they pay well, um, they they have the work-life balance is relatively okay. The culture is also really nice. But yeah, it's just that I was really looking for something else. There are some points in life that I'm trying to sort of equilibrate and try to evaluate. Am I being too idealistic? Am I searching for something that doesn't exist? I mean, definitely those questions came into my mind, but I guess it's just luck for me, honestly, because it just so happens that that some better opportunity comes along. But yes, definitely, it gives me a lot of anxiety trying to leave because but I don't know, maybe it's just part of my personality also. I'm a, I guess I'm a risk taker. Sometimes, I just follow my gut. Yeah. So yeah, just to answer the question, I guess the answer is yes. I I'm afraid at times also.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. Okay, we will take note of some of your other questions, and if Ralph may be still here later later, no, maybe he can still answer some of your questions. But I'm taking note of the questions that were sent to me directly. If we are not able to answer these questions now, maybe some of us, the instructors, can also help field these questions. Okay, so thank you very much again, Ralph. No, so let's all give Ralph a virtual warm round of applause again, and or heart or any emoji that you want to share with us this afternoon. So for gracing our class, we'd like to present the certificate of appreciation. So this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Engineer Ralph Quason for sharing his knowledge and expertise as a resource speaker in a special lecture of MatE 15, the principles of materials engineering practice, entitled Materials Engineering Profession in the Philippines, given this day, 29th of June, via Zoom, from of, of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City, signed by the three instructors. Thank you, Ralph. Do we have a photo op? Ralph, picturean mo na ka namin. Wait lang. Smile. Pabalik sa certificate, ma'am. Wait lang. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Sorry, mali. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Thank you ulit, Ralph. Okay, we'll now proceed to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Engineer Joshua Kevin Uy. Next slide, please. So Josh Uy is currently an application engineer for the automotive market for 3M. Maybe I can read his bio sketch. Josh is an application engineer for 3M Philippines, handling the automotive aftermarket division. So in this role, he oversees division's new product launches, conducts end user trainings, and creates market studies in the automotive repair industry. As a market leader in collision repair, he is in constant collaboration with automotive manufacturers and stakeholders to ensure the local processes are up to date and global market trends are anticipated. Josh was most recently an application engineer in Consumer Business Group at 3M Philippines from 2019 to early 2020, where he also handled customer training on a consumer level. Josh has a Bachelor of Science degree in Materials Engineering from UP Diliman, and his hobbies include woodworking and DIY home repair. Yeah, magaling si Josh dyan, promise. So let's all give a warm round of applause for Josh Uy. Welcome, Josh.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
All set?
So- yes. So,
Okay.
okay
Thank
naman yung
you.
audio and video.
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you properly.
All right. Sige.
Wait,
So,
nasa planta ka?
nasa lab,
Ah,
hindi
okay.
sa planta.
Okay, okay. Sige, sige.
Alright.
Floor is yours,
So,
Josh.
thank you. So, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you first and foremost to Sir Ken and to all the other instructors for MatE 15 for inviting me to talk and share a little bit about what I do here at 3M. Um, yeah, yung flow nito or yung the way that I'd like to take this is a little bit medyo free flowing. I'm not entirely sure what you guys are expecting from me, so I'd like to allot a little bit more time at the end for more question and answer. So, as Sir Ken had already noticed, I'm not at the typical office. My role is an application engineer for 3M, and that mostly means that I am a very hands-on engineer. So I deal a lot with customers, end users. I spend around probably 80 to 70% in the field and around 20% here in the laboratory, and probably last 5% at home, especially now that we're working hybrid, not always out and not always in the office. So let me just switch here. So just a simple title, MatE at 3M. So I don't think I will be needing to go through my intro anymore since Sir Ken already passed through it. But I did graduate BS Materials Engineering in 2018, and then I started 2019 at 3M. So 3M is my first job, and then I've stayed here ever since. So I've had two roles since then. I was an application engineer, same role for a different business. So I'll explain the different businesses we have at 3M later on. I handled more of the consumer level goods, so things that you can find at your retail stores, post-it notes, scotch tape, anything that you can find in hardware stores, so that section. And mid 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, I was assigned to a different business, to a different business. Now I'm in the automotive aftermarket. So it's a very stark difference between our consumer level and the more of the industrial level. So I'll dip into that a little bit more later. But I started my quote unquote career here at 3M before I got even hired. I was actually an intern here. So this was my PPP program. Not sure if that's the same thing that you call it now, but yeah, I was an intern here in the summer of, I would think, 2017. So yeah, so here's a picture of myself and my co-intern, also a batchmate from MatE Jello, in this very room. So this was taken in 2017. So call it full circle, maybe, since we took this as a joke, and now I'm working at this very lab that you see behind me. But yeah, that's how my career here at 3M started. So a general outline of what I'd like to talk about during this short talk that I have. A company overview, what is 3M? There is a big chance that some of you might not know what 3M is. What does 3M stand for? Is it 3 meters? Is it the same as 3M pizza? Ganun. What does an application engineer at 3M do? Specifically to my role, to my job. That's why I'm in at my lab, so I can better visualize to you guys what I do at 3M in the everyday life, finding new applications for existing materials as well. So 3M at a glance. So 3M is a multinational company. It is based in the US in St. Paul, Minnesota. 3M stands for Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company. So that's why it's called 3M. It started back in 1902. We have sales in nearly every country, and we have a yearly net worth of around 32 billion in sales. So this digit was actually from 2021, so it's not updated yet. We have a total of 4 business groups. I'll show that in a little bit. We are 90,000 globally, so 90,000 3Mers or employees globally. As a company, we hold 117,000 patents, and for 100 straight years, we have issued dividends to our stakeholders. And we are one of the 30 companies on the Dow Jones Industrial Index. All right. So what does this all mean, essentially? Essentially, we are a company that is very rooted in science and technology. So we are a science-based company. We started in 1902 out of a mistake. The founder, I wouldn't say the founder, but I would say the very first employee or very first worker at 3M ventured to actually start a company for automotive purposes. So back in 1902, the automotive industry, especially in the US, was just ramping up. So because of the ramp up in automotive industry and the manufacturing of automotives, a lot of other subcategories or sub-industries were also ramping up. So a need came up for a product to work with metal. So cars are made out of metal. So when you need to make cars, you need to have materials to work with metal. And one of those materials are grinding wheels. So if you're not familiar with grinding wheels, these are the wheels or abrasives that are used on grinders. If you see people working in construction, you see these sparking very vigorously. So these are grinding wheels. So back in 1902, the very first 3Mers wanted to make a company that created these grinding wheels. But they started mining in a place where they thought they had struck gold. They had thought that they started mining a very hard mineral called anthracite. But after mining several tons of it, it wasn't actually anthracite. It was actually corundum. So it's a much softer material. It's still an abrasive, considered an abrasive, but it's not a passable material to be created as grinding wheels. So essentially their venture, at that time, it was considered a multi-million-dollar venture, was essentially a failure. But they turned it around and they created our very first product from the corundum. They put it on a piece of paper and they created the very first this. So the very first sandpaper. So 3M was founded on this very simple yet still very relevant today product, which is the sandpaper. Obviously, over the years we've developed it and we've created more and more advanced technologies, but this is our very roots, our sandpaper. So fast forward now to 2022, we are very diverse. We are in almost every industry that you know of, industrial, consumer. We are in hospitals. We are in semiconductor manufacturing. Yeah, so we are a very diverse company. How do we address the problems or the problems of our customers? We use our technologies and we apply these across different businesses. So for example, if you don't know 3M for our abrasives, you probably know us for our adhesives or tapes. We use our adhesives, very basic technology, one of our cornerstones in all our different businesses. So we use it in safety and industrial. So you can see these in window tints. You can see these in industrial tapes and industrial adhesives. We use these in transportation and electronics. So the smartphones on your the smartphones that you use most likely have 3M adhesives in them. So these adhesives basically eliminate the need for tiny screws, for machine screws, and that makes it much more lighter, and it even makes it waterproof. So that's a different application of our adhesives. And at the same time, our adhesives are strong enough to hold together planes, hold together cars, and even glass panels on hotels. They're strong, but they're also very sensitive. We have adhesives that are applied in healthcare. So medical tapes and dressings, if you've ever been to a hospital or if you've ever even just gotten a blood test, if they put a piece of cotton on where the injection or the syringe was, and they use a white piece of tape, that white piece of tape is most likely micropore. That's the brand of our tape. That's a medical grade tape that 3M creates. So we are also in healthcare. And lastly, of course, consumer. You probably know this more than anything else. We are the company behind Post-its, Post-it notes, Scotch tape, and Command. So we have a lot of Post-it notes here. So yeah, so we're in the business of improving lives. And we say that each person meets 3M products almost 17 times a day. So as I said, it's most probably already in your smartphones, through the screens that you're watching this through, your laptop or your PC or even your TV. We probably have some 3M products within them. So these are our 4 main business groups. We have safety and industrial. So this is what I'm part of. So this includes our abrasive markets, electrical markets, automotive markets. We also have the transportation and electronics business group. So this is all about automotive manufacturing, aerospace manufacturing, electrifying vehicles. So we work a lot with a lot of EV companies right now. We also are in healthcare. So we cater to a lot of hospitals, clinics, and definitely in consumer. So our biggest business is safety and industrial. So that is what we call our heartland business. Okay. Are we okay so far? Are there any questions? Maybe I can take questions at the end so that we don't ruin the flow. All right, so moving on to the next part. What does an application engineer at 3M do? Or what is this word, application engineer? Maybe some of you have never heard of this term, but an application engineer is a very, I would say it's very far from what you think of an engineer is. I like to explain it in this manner. So how do we get a solution, or how do we get a product to a customer? Or how do we get a solution or product to a customer? We start with our technologies, or we start with our science base. So we have different materials, or we have different scientific knowledge and techniques that we have already spent research and development on. From there, we use and we combine these different technologies. In this case, we have adhesives, we have different film technologies, we have nanotechnology, sometimes we have light management. We use these and we create a product, a certain product that we know that can serve, or we know that can solve a problem in the industry or solve a problem with our customers. And from that product, when we test it and we know it can work, then we move on into scaling up. So we move into manufacturing. We find the best way to manufacture. We find the best place to manufacture. Since we are a multinational company, we have plants all across the world. Majority of them are still in the US, but we have a lot in Asia. We have a lot in EMEA, Europe. We also have some in Latin America. And then lastly, we have the implementation stage. So when we have implementation, that means the product is there, the product has been manufactured, research has been done, has been tested, and now it's time to basically give it to our customers and essentially sell the product, or a better term would be implement in the term of application engineer. So what does this mean? Where do application engineers like myself fall into? I am at the tail end of this, I would say, chain. So the first part, we have our corporate or division scientists. These are the, I would say, hardcore scientists that we have back in St. Paul. We have physicists, chemists, chemical engineers, materials engineers like ourselves. And then we also have product engineers. Product engineers are the ones who use these sciences or use these techniques that we've developed and combines them to create products. From product engineers, they pass it on to manufacturing engineers. They are the ones who consider how these products have to be manufactured, definitely most cost efficient. What is the packaging that needs to be done? Are there any, I would say, considerations for local laws? So we are a multinational company, so there are times wherein the product is manufactured in the US, but if it's sold in Japan, it actually can't be sold because there are some components that are illegal in Japan. So those are some things that have to be considered by some manufacturing engineers. And the last part, which I'm part of, is application engineers. When the product comes to me, it's already finished. So let's say a roll of tape. The roll of tape is already finished. It's already packaged. There's no more research to be done. What my role is to basically is understand what this tape is, what it's made of, talk to the product engineers and to the corporate or division scientists and understand what it's for. Where is it intended to be used? And from there, I go to our customers or go to our end users and give it to them, see where these products are best suited for. For example, the specialty tape, it might not be used for customers who are very cost, I would say, are looking at their costs very specifically, so they can't really buy any expensive products. So I wouldn't give those customers this very high performance tape, but I would give them to customers who are looking for the best products. So that's essentially what an application engineer does. Other activities that some application engineers like myself find ourselves doing, we do a lot of product trainings, product trainings, seminars. In the time of the pandemic and in the time of COVID, we've shifted a lot from face-to-face trainings to digital trainings, such as like this. So that's why I have this setup with like multiple cameras. So I'll show this later. And yeah, so we shifted product trainings to more digital because we're not yet fully able to meet our customers in the field. We also do competitive testing. So competitive testing basically means we want to be a market leader as our products are, well, for us, the best of the best, but we have to know what our competitors are doing. So we need to know what their products are doing, how they perform against our products. Are we really still the best? And sometimes we aren't. What can we do to become the best again? What are the marketing strategies they do? So even as an engineer, we also consider those things because that really does affect the sales of a product. So that was competitive testing. We do line visits or site visits. So our customers are manufacturers or repair centers, I'll show later. And they can't simply just stop their work and accommodate our visits. So sometimes we visit them while the plant or while the workers or while the plant is working. So we do site visits. And as mentioned earlier, we also do new product launches. So we are a science-based company and we always are on the forefront of innovation. So we have new products not almost, but every year, actually every quarter, we have new products launching to address some new and upcoming needs in the market. Sometimes we also do customer complaints or customer concerns. This is a little bit on the low side since, again, the products come to us finished, so we can't really do much in the manufacturing, but we do relay any concerns from our customers. Sometimes we do packaging design, although this is very limited. That's only happened probably once or twice in my experience. And we also do government collaborations. So as a company that are present in every industry, like healthcare and industrial, government institutions such as the OST, the Department of Transportation, Department of Energy, so those similar ones often contact us because we are market leaders and they get our advice on certain regulations that are upcoming. And we also collaborate with them. Obviously, this is all on a level playing field. We're not the only companies that they're being contacted, but most often we are one of the top of mind when it comes to collaborating with industry leaders. Okay, so that is what a general application engineer does. For me, I am in the Automotive Aftermarket division. So what does Automotive Aftermarket mean? It means anything that happens to a car or automotive after it has been sold or after it has moved outside of a car dealership. If it gets crashed, if it's involved in an accident, if it gets scratched, any repair or any maintenance that's done, that's what we call aftermarket. So we have collision repair, body repair, paint and finish, but essentially collision repair. These customers are car dealerships, body shops, and paint centers. So when we say car dealerships, these are the likes of Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, Ford, Suzuki, all those big dealerships. Those are our customers, and those are the people that I interact with the most. And another side would be ProCare. This is more of the DIY or the things that you see on the shelves of, let's say, Ace Hardware or True Value. So like car shampoo, car waxes. So these are more of the DIY market. A typical collision repair center, or I would say my customers, they look like, obviously not exactly like this, but the collision repair center has these stages. So for example, a car comes in with a dent or it's crashed or it's involved in an accident. It comes in, the service advisor will identify the defects or identify the things that needs to be repaired. Sorry, let me bring up my laser pointer here. So it comes in here. And then the service advisor will inspect it. We have a quotation to the customer, say that it will cost XXX amount to repair it. and the customer will either say yes or no. After that, the car will get dismantled. If possible, it will get dismantled. Some parts cannot be repaired unless it's dismantled. So let's say, for example, a hood or a door that's massively damaged has to be removed. And then it moves on to the next step. If there are any mechanical things that have to be done, it then moves on to the next step, wherein the dents are being pulled out, or basically as if the dents haven't occurred yet. So that's what we do. And then other stages, putting body filler or masilla, and then painting. This is a paint booth. And then lastly, inspection until the customer receives the car back again. So that is a collision repair center. What you probably will see when you cross a car dealership, when you see a Toyota or when you see a Mitsubishi along the road, you mostly see the showroom with the new cars and everything. But behind that is an entrance they call the body and repair. That's where all the dirty work is done. That's my forte, or that's where I work the most. And that's why my lab, I would say lab, but it's mostly a workshop, looks like this. So this is a paint booth behind me right here. These are the different chemicals that are used in a collision repair center. So we have some degreasers, we also have paints, etc. We also have some curing lights, etc. And I'll show a little bit more on that side when I move to the different camera. So this is why, as an application engineer, our labs or our workshops are simulating where our customers are and what the typical environment is. So we can, and we have brought in an entire car here to simulate a car repair. So if a car has a dent, we literally bring it into the inside of the paint booth and repaint it as if it's new. And then that's what we use for trainings. So typical activities in the field look like this. So this is again the dirty work that you don't see before a car is returned to a customer after an incident. So these are sanding. So prior to painting, these are the activities that can be seen behind doors. If I could essentially summarize my 3 goals as an application engineer, it would be this: commercialize, educate, and innovate. So commercialize, it says here achieve sales targets. We are not salespeople, so I work a lot with salespeople. So they are my partners when we're going out into the field. Essentially, I am the technical backbone of the team. Salespeople have their own targets. They have to sell. They have some quotas to reach. I don't have my own sales quota. I don't have my sales target, but I am dictated indirectly by it, because if the business that I am part of isn't earning, the company essentially does not see any value in having an application engineer. So we have indirect sales targets, but we're not really burdened by a sales target. So that's what I mean by commercialize. We also do, we execute programs such as marketing programs and sales programs. The next column would be educate. So again, as I mentioned, we do product trainings, customer engagement. We do Lazada specials. Especially during the time of the pandemic, we couldn't go out. And then lastly, we have innovate. Again, we do launching of new products, and we go to the customers to find the demands of our customers. So case in point, when we do product trainings, it's either here in our customer technical center where I am right now. It's either face-to-face now that we're doing face-to-face trainings, or we also do virtual. So this is essentially what what my audience will see. So for example, if I'm doing a training, so let me switch to this side. And so this is what training, or this is what the rest of my lab or my methods room looks like. So we have parts of cars. So this is a door, this is a hood. We also have a hood a little bit off screen here. So whenever some of the activities that I do, when we go to the field, we look at the customers and we see where their pain points are, and we see where our products can actually help them in certain ways. So case in point, we are launching a new product. It's a flexible sandpaper. So a typical sandpaper looks like this. So I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this. So sandpaper looks like this. It's called sandpaper because the abrasives are on a piece of paper. But when we're sanding, or when our surfaces such as this door have certain curves, so this part is pretty much flat. There is no curvature to this. But when you reach certain areas like this door handle area or near the window or near the bottom here, body shop technicians have a hard time sanding this with your typical sandpaper. Why? Because sandpaper or the paper behind it is stiff. So as you can see here, if you bend it in any way, at a certain point, it starts to break or it starts to bend because the paper is too stiff. So when you try to bend this and sand, let's say a curved area here, you wouldn't be able to sand it because basically the abrasive at the very end is gone, or it's basically too brittle to be folded. So that's why we address that with a new product that we're launching. This is our flexible sanding paper. So instead of paper, it's actually attached to a rubber and plastic composite material. So it's flexible, it's stretchy, and it can be folded and definitely even pinched, and it wouldn't break any of the abrasives. So this allows our customers to basically sand, especially the areas that are very, very curved and will not be able to be accessed by your typical sandpaper. So that's a very interesting application or interesting way of how us as application engineers tackle our jobs in the field. So we launch products that address problems in the field that even some of our competitors or some other brands aren't even considering. So like for this, we also have some masking papers. We also have masking tape. So for this one, here I'm simulating a repair. So this has been painted on one side and this has been just body fillered, and I'll be painting this probably next week. Again, the goal as an application engineer for our lab here is to simulate as much as possible what our end users are doing. So that's why this looks like a body repair center or a paint shop. So that's it. So let me move back. So that is what I do as an application engineer. And you might be asking what materials engineer, because I am a materials engineer, what have I used as an application engineer here? So what does Okay, so what does a materials engineer have to offer at 3M? To be honest, I did not use a lot. I do not use everything that I learned during my time at MatE here as an application engineer at 3M. Do I need to know, let's say, the tensile strength of 4140 steel? No, I don't need to do that. Do I need to know what type of polymer melts at a certain temperature? Not really. That doesn't mean that those courses did not help me to do my everyday job. It's mostly the critical thinking that is imbibed when you do study those things. That said, though, there are very specific things that I do use very, very often, and these are the ones listed here. So design of experiments, statistical analysis. I think you're our freshman, so I don't think you've taken these courses yet, but I think they're part of your curriculum. These I use very, very often. Again, as I said, we do a lot of competitive testing. So when we say competitive testing, for example, we have a product, let's say product A that is from 3M. We know it's a market leader and we know it's selling great, but recently we found out that there are some competitors coming in, undercutting us on the price, so it's much cheaper, and they say it performs much better than ours. So let's say this is product B, but these are both 3M. What I do is I gather all of these products, I buy them off the shelves, off the market, and I do testing. So I prepare a test panel here, and I do the typical way of how these products are actually being used. And I use the design of experiments and these statistical analysis tools to determine whether or not it is true that these products are working better than our products are claimed to. So those are the two things that I use a lot from my MatE curriculum. Failure analysis, in the sense that failure of the products themselves. So sometimes our products don't meet the product standards of our customers. So in essence, this isn't the failure analysis that MatE is being taught. Failure analysis in MatE is mostly like, let's say a piece of metal broke. Let's examine the microstructure of it and see how it broke and what caused it. Failure analysis for me as an application at 3M mostly is more of the process of analyzing what a product failure is. So analyzing whether it's because this product was stored at a high temperature, it's not supposed to be stored at high temperature, what are the chemical reactions that might have happened because of that, etc. So that's what we call my failure analysis at 3M. And lastly, some auxiliary ones, computer-aided design, and definitely analytical methods. So I use the UTM, or the Universal Testing Machine. It's just in the other room behind me there. And also our FTIR, so to identify some organic compounds or organic solvents. There are some cases where we find some counterfeit products in the market. So let's say they're claiming to be 3M, but they're actually just a fake 3M. We use the FTIR basically to see whether or not it is truly 3M and they're just repackaging it, or if it's really fake. Sometimes I also use it to check on our competitors' formulation to see what are the components that they use. So that's a little bit of a sneaky use of FTIR, but it's very much useful to have that in my, I would say, toolkit. Okay. And lastly, I would say what are my biggest learnings from working here at 3M and in general after I graduated. I'll just run through these. Grades don't matter, but they also do. This still holds true very much. Whether you like it or not, the number grades that you have will always never be the perfect reflection of the learning that you get in class. But your teachers and your professors like Sir Ken and the rest of the instructors for MatE 15 will really strive to do their best to bridge that gap, to make sure those numbers, the grades that you get, are really the best manifestation of your effort and your learning in the class. So that's what I mean by they don't really matter. But when do they matter? Unfortunately, some companies, I would say majority of companies, especially local companies in the Philippines, still hold a lot of value on the number grades that you get, whether you're, let's say, a cum laude, you have Latin honors, or you have a high grade, which part, or if you're in a graduating class, are you first, second, and third, they still hold that. Unfortunately, that still is the reality now. But I'm happy to say that a lot of companies are moving towards a more value, or I would say a meritocratic system. They don't look at your grades, but they do look at your value to the company or to the value to their job. That's done through experience and, let's say, more of extracurricular work. Next is to learn to deal with people. Whether you like it or not, you will have to deal with difficult people. If you learn to deal with difficult people, everything else is easy. So when you have to be in a team wherein some are all leaders or some are all followers, so those are some circumstances that you have to be able to learn how to deal with these different people. So as early as now, I really encourage you to take up some opportunities. If you have the opportunity, if you can lead a project, I'm sure within your classes there are different group activities. Take the opportunity to lead it, but also take the opportunity to be a supporter, or let's say just a team member. So learn to deal with different types of people. Also learn how to ask help. So I myself am a very, I would say, very independent person. So I always want to do things by myself. I also want to do things on my own. But I learned very quickly into my job that I can't do it. I would often burn out because I think that I can do everything on my own. So you have to learn to ask for help. It's not a negative thing about your personality, nor is it a weakness of yourself. Everyone needs some help sometimes. So always ask for advice from people, whether they're colleagues at your stage, probably your professors and some of your teachers. So learn to ask some help. And if you can't really handle some tasks, make sure to delegate and to, just admit to yourself that you really can't do a lot on your own. And then the last two would be let go of the jargon and take initiative. I would just go with take initiative. It's a little bit early in your, I would say, career, but once you graduate and once you're part of, let's say, a work area or workforce, especially in corporate, you would find it very easy that you can rise above the rest when you take initiative. So when I mean take initiative, when your team or when your group of people is asked to do something, when you say that, hey, I'd like to do this, not necessarily lead, but hey, I have this, let's say I'm good at this, can I lead this part of the project, or essentially like that. It's very easy to take initiative, and that on its own is very valued, especially in the corporate world. And I am, I would say, a good example of that. I am an application engineer, but all this cameras that I've set up, all this more of digital thing is not part of my job description. But since I am personally interested in these camera work, digital live streaming, ganun, sounds and everything, I took the opportunity when it arose to lead this digital application engineering project. So it was an additional thing. I didn't obviously get paid for it additionally, but since I was interested, I led that, and that's actually led to me being recognized on a more global level. So because of this, because it's a good setup, I have been getting calls from our US counterparts, our European counterparts, asking, hey, how did you get this setup? What cameras are you using, etc. So I would say take initiative. It's very easy to differentiate yourself, whether in your spot right now, in your education, in your school work, and eventually when you do reach the workforce or the corporate life, quote unquote. Okay. And I'm sorry if I ran a little bit long, but I guess that's the end of my talk. I can open up to questions, and if you have any questions after this, you can always get in touch with me. That's my email. That's the best way to reach me. So, yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. Yan. So actually kami na-amaze din sa setup mo. So kanina pa kami nagbubulungan. Kailangan natin ng ganyan sa lab. Yan. So very good. Again, thank you. And siguro to add, no, I can attest with Josh's tinkering abilities. No? So he likes to to really look at things, kalikutin, bulat-bulatin, ganyan. So yeah, I can attest to that. So he's done a lot of things in the lab. And I can also attest that he can support us. No? So I also inquired with him a lot of times. So in 3M, apparently ang daming types ng tapes, and we had to do a characterization. And I asked for help. Yes, going back to your talk. No? I asked for help, and nalinawan tayo dun sa kung ano nga ba yung kailangan natin. Yeah. So again, we're opening the floor for questions. So if you have questions, actually, you already answered the one question that was sent earlier, no? That indeed what you do as an application engineer is a different task compared to sales. No? So you have a separate division. Another question is, do you have any positions open or opportunities at 3M at the moment? Yeah.
As for positions,
Like an
technical,
internship, yeah.
for internships, I believe that we've already opened them. So I'm not sure when they're gonna open. I think the last time that they mentioned was in October. So I think October will be open, but I'm not sure if the slots have already been taken. So since we've already been getting applications since the start of 2020, 2021, and 2022, I think they've not sure if accommodated the first applications, but for internships, I think we're opening them up now, especially that more face-to-face activities are allowed, for both, let's say, company-wide. So it's only no February nag-start kami pumasok dito sa lab. So yeah, job-wise,
so may
as a
mga
technical,
graduating tayo dito. May graduating tayong kasama.
Job-wise, as a technical or application engineer, we are not hiring as of the moment. So we have application engineers for each division. So yung technical team namin is composed of 13 people, one per division. But yung turnover ng mga engineers namin is very, very long. So average ng tenure sa mga application engineers is around, I would say 15 years. Nung pumasok ako as a fresh one, binaba ko yun to 10. I was first. I was yeah. I was a hire. I was the first hire in probably 8 years. So very very fresh face ako, and I'm definitely the youngest in the team. I didn't mention this pala, but I would say materials engineers for 3M here locally. Out of the 13, around 6 of them are chemical engineers, 3 are mechanical engineers, 2 are industrial engineers, and the rest are electronics engineers. Ako lang yung materials engineer. So just to give you an idea of the share of different engineering here in the 3M Philippines technical team.
Okay. Thank you so much, Josh. And actually, we can see that you are enjoying your job, and I'm sure most of the application engineers as well. That's why they're staying for a long time. Okay. Do you have other questions, guys? You can type in your questions sa chat box. Again, we'd also like to hear your voice. You can raise your hand and ask Josh directly. Marami kayong matututunan kay Josh. So we have an interesting contrast between our presenters. So Ralph has explored opportunities, while Josh has explained specific tasks that materials engineer can do. So, ayan, may question na. Okay. Okay, na kay Josh na kung sasagutin niya to. No? So, Josh, do you think you'll also stay in 3M for a long time? Why or why not?
Okay. Tinatanong ko rin yung sarili ko niyan. I think it's a good company. So I think I can grow a lot into it. The great thing about being in 3M is yun nga, yung sinabi ko, it's the technical, I would say, what we actually call the technical ladder, from application engineers to manufacturing, product engineers to all the way to corporate scientists. Lahat yan is open to all of us. Definitely, yung mga salespeople who don't have any technical background, they're a little bit restricted kasi wala silang more of education. But once you're in the technical ladder as an application engineer or even a corporate scientist, it's not necessarily easy, but it's easier for someone to shift between those roles. So product engineers, manufacturing, more of corporate scientists. In terms of staying at 3M, I think there is a big chance that I will be staying in the company itself. In this specific role as an application engineer, I honestly, may makarinig.
I don't honestly... tayo sa YouTube. So, chat mo na lang.
It's okay. It's good naman na I've already voiced this out there naman, and people know naman. It's not a thing that I don't see myself staying here for more than, let's say, 5 years, or essentially. What's good about being an application engineer at 3M specifically is that every month or every quarter there's a new activity that's being done. It's not very monotonous. So let's say 1 month I could be, let's say, sanding cars. The other month I could be doing more digital work, mga ganito. So it doesn't get boring. So that's what I like about at 3M. As a company, yes, I think I will be staying for a while.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Josh. So, yeah, may tanong din dito, no? Sir, can we also ask about your income? Probably yung sa ano na lang, entry level.
Ito rin yung tinanong last time.
Yes.
I would say, based on what I know and I know of the incomes of my batchmates nung pumasok sila sa other industries, doon na lang tayo pumunta. It would be on the higher end, but I really can't compare those roles. When I say these different roles, I would say some of my batchmates went into semiconductor industries, so nasa planta, mga QA engineers, etc. Mga ganun. But I am more of on the other tail end of a product's lifespan. I am more of a hybrid between an engineer, a sales, and also a marketer. So I do a lot of those things. So I wouldn't really be able to compare yung mga salaries nila sa salary ko. But I would say as an entry-level engineer, it's definitely on the high side.
Sorry, last time sinabi niya yung value, ngayon hindi. Noon, okay lang dyan.
Oo nga, sinabi ko nga last time. Ano na lang, starting upwards of 40. Yeah, upwards of 40,000.
Yeah. Entry level. Okay. Pero ano din, no? We'd like to emphasize na si Josh kasi was a former intern of 3M. So I think it also plays a role doon for him being hired at 3M. So we have 3 more questions. Meron bang R&D? Do we have an R&D division for 3M in the Philippines?
In the Philippines, no. So the highest technical here is application engineer. So we used to have some manufacturing engineering sa planta sa Cavite in Carmona, but that has since closed down. They've moved the manufacturing abroad. So they've moved essentially the whole C region. All the 3M manufacturing has been concentrated into particular countries, and Philippines was not part of it. So unfortunately, our plant in Carmona is closed na. So for R&D, we have application engineers. But when we're talking about R&D, like mga hardcore research, mga new products, new materials, it's mostly based in our headquarters in the US. So sa Minnesota, we have some facilities in 3M Japan. The closest would be in Singapore. So we have R&D facilities in Singapore. So those are what would be hubs of R&D within the company, because it wouldn't make any, I would say, financial sense to have R&D facilities in every single country that 3M is in, because most of the problems, or let's say most of the products that we have, are shared across the different countries. So mostly naka-focus lang siya on those areas. So there are times that we have to do some R&D. So let's say I myself as an application engineer, let's say I go to a customer of mine and they have a need, and that need is not being met even by our best product. And I think I can create a product that is better, something like that. So what I can do as an application engineer here in the Philippines is to work with some of the product engineers or some of the corporate scientists in other countries. So let's say I have an idea for a new type of tape or a new type of adhesive. I'll propose this idea to these product engineers and to these corporate scientists and work with them so that they can develop it on my behalf. And on my end, as application engineers, I didn't mention this pala kanina. Yung flow ng science, I would say from the scientists to application engineers, may arrow yun from left to right. But in real life, actually, it's both ways. So left and right, right to left yun. So as application engineers, we also have a lot to do with producing new products. Since we are the ones out in the field, we know what our customers need. Yes. We know what the market is, let's say, evolving. So let's say, for example, the paints that we're using for cars right now, they used to be solvent-based. So yun yung mga mabaho talaga na mga paint. But now we're moving into water-based paint. So that is a market trend that we have to anticipate. And if some of our current products are not meeting the demands of that market trend, we can be the ones to tell our product engineers, I would say, up the technical chain to say, hey, yung current products natin are not working, and this is the reason why. So they'll be able to work on it. So it's more of a two-way street in terms of R&D. But essentially, to answer your question, R&D facilities here in the Philippines, as much as possible, we have mga equipment and we have machines to do it, but we don't have dedicated personnel to do R&D. So as I mentioned, we have a UTM, we have FTIR, we have some mechanical strain analysis machines. We recently acquired a weatherometer, so to do accelerated aging. Yeah, so mostly mga equipment, but madalang lang siyang gamitin And the ones that are using it is mostly us application engineers when needed lang siya.
Okay. May mga nadagdag na question. Sorry, Josh. Ano yung safety risks or hazards na involved dun sa current mong role?
Safety. Oh, interesting
Mhm.
question. Okay, so when it comes to safety, so balik ako dun sa slide in my, I would say, natural habitat. Ayan. So as you can see, as you can imagine, sanding does a lot to do with dust. So maraming dust na generate, ganyan. Also, we use a lot of chemicals, we use a lot of paints, mga degreasers, ganun. So those are more of the occupational hazards that I encounter. I wouldn't say it's the same as an application engineer, let's say an application engineer for the electrical market. So yung application engineer, yung counterpart ko yun, they actually go to Meralco, they go to power plants, they have tried going up power lines and seeing mga live mga wires. So it changes where your market is. I would say I'm on more of a moderate level. Yung mga safety risks that I encounter are usually mga ganun, mga dusty environments. Obviously, I always use a respirator, but even before COVID, I use a respirator when I'm going out, especially if it's a dusty environment. Ear protection. If you don't know, 3M is also a producer of safety equipment. So we use our own equipment. So our respirators, our earplugs, safety glasses. But in terms of major occupational hazards, I myself am not exposed to a lot of it. And again, it really depends on what market you're moving into. So yun, yung electrical market na application engineer, yun, mas exposed sa kanya. Ano pa ba? Yung engineer ng personal safety equipment. So we have an engineer for personal safety. Yun, mas na-expose siya sa mga more, I would say, dangerous or hazardous environments. We're not required, if that's your question, we're not required naman, but it's good then to be exposed to some of these environments. Yun, he's been up in mining plants inside of enclosed areas, mga ganun. So yun yung mga occupational hazards.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have last two questions, and if you have additional questions, you can post it sa Uvle or email Josh. Binigay naman niya yung, huwag niyo lang spam si Josh. Okay. So Josh, did you struggle applying for your current job, given that you're the only materials engineer in the team?
Okay. Did I struggle? No. I guess ako, it was more of a case of luck lang siguro and a good sense of timing talaga. Because I was, again, an intern, as Sir Ken mentioned, I already had my foot in the door at 3M. And nagkataon lang talaga when I graduated in 2018 that a job opening opened up for a application engineer for a division that was expanding, or let's say their business was growing to a point that they needed an additional headcount. And nagkataon lang talaga na pumasok yung job opening na yun right after I graduated. It wasn't, let's say, a done deal kagad. It wasn't like it was given to me on a silver platter na, uy, pag-graduate mo, pasok ka na dito. I definitely had to go through the application process. There was a point that I was against another person that had more experience and had more, I would say, more experience in the field or in the role that I was applying for. In the sense, yung part ng question, as a materials engineer, did it really do anything? Is it easier or was it harder for me as a materials engineer? Essentially, no. Again, as I mentioned kanina, your backgrounds, especially for more technical roles, definitely if you're, let's say, going into the electrical market, if you're applying for an application engineer, as an electrical engineer, you have an upper hand. Definitely yun. But most of the divisions here at 3M, they don't really look into a lot of those backgrounds. Very specific lang yung mga ganun. Let's say electronics market, if you're an electronics engineer, that's mostly a requirement na because you know the background of it. But let's say if I applied for an electronics application engineer as a materials engineer, would it be easier or would it be harder against some candidates who are electronics engineers? I would say it would be a little bit harder. The sad reality is, and I know Sir Ken and everyone here would know, materials engineering is not a very popular or not a even known na engineering. When I was an intern here with yung co-intern ko, kabatchmate ko sa, as intern, si Jello, lahat ng engineers dito, mga application engineers, it was their first time ever knowing that materials engineering was even a course. They didn't even know about it. So in the sense na yung struggle in applying for jobs as a materials engineer, it mostly goes down to the course not even being known yet. So yun yung struggle, really.
Yeah. And we're doing our best to do to
we are doing our best. I am doing my best.
Yes, thank you, Josh. Okay, and last question, eto, to end the Q&A on a lighter note, no? So what do you feel, what part of your job as an application engineer are you most interested in doing?
Interested in doing? I think it's a lot. But if I had to choose, siguro yung mga product launches, yung mga new products, yun. Again, as I mentioned previously, I'm a very thinkery guy, so I like to work with my hands, and I like to have things always changing. So new products are always good for me, or very interesting for me. So case in point, we have a new product that I'm working on to launch. It's actually a system, so this is a tool. And so we don't only sell products, we also sell hard goods, mga tools, mga ganito. So this is I would say, this tool itself is I would say, game changer in our industry. So that's one of the most interesting things that I encounter at 3M, because we are a market leader, especially in this market that I am in collision repair. I always have the opportunity to get my hands on products that are on the forefront, on the bleeding edge of technology. Yung mga flexible sandpaper na pinakita ko kanina, when I show that to technicians out in the field, so mga Toyota, Mitsubishi, they think that it's something out of science fiction. Kasi nga, we are, especially in a third world country, we are so far behind, and 3M is really the forefront in yung always bringing in the new innovations. So that would probably be my favorite part, always tinkering with the new products and new launches. It's also a learning experience for me. Sometimes, yun nga, mga flexible sandpaper, I never knew. When I got the flexible sandpaper, I never knew that sandpaper could be flexible. So mga learning din yan. So that would be my most favorite part as an application engineer, as my job as an application engineer.
Again, thank you, Josh. Let's all give a warm round of applause. Thank you, Josh. No, so we have a virtual certificate for you. To award the certificate of appreciation. So we are giving you this certificate of appreciation to Joshua Kevin Uy for sharing his knowledge and expertise as a resource speaker in our special lecture for MatE 15, entitled Materials Engineering Profession in the Philippines. So actually the title is quite broad, but we're actually just showcasing some of our inspiring alumni. So given this day, 29th of June, via Zoom platform of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City. Josh, mag-screenshot lang ako. So smile ka dyan. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Ayan. Sorry. Ayan. Again, thank you so much. Oh, sorry na dito sila. Marami kami dito sa Again, thank you so much, Josh, for sharing your time and sharing what you know and helping bridge yung industry and the materials engineering practice. So, palakpakan ulit natin si Josh. Hopefully, makita ka namin soon.
We are opening our doors again, so baka pwede kayong mag-visit dito. So,
Field
yeah.
trip, ganun.
Yeah, we have we call it the Innovation Hall. Essentially, parang showroom lang siya ng all of our products. So it's like a tour essentially. So I'll ask around if we are able to actually host you as a class or Kahit kayo lang, sir. Okay lang din.
Oh, sige. Noted yan.
Yeah.
Ako lang daw. Oh, guys, ako lang. Okay. Sir Jeff?
What is it, sir?
Instructions for MatE 15.
Oh, yeah. So thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for our speakers for speaking, sharing your experiences. So for MatE 15 na lang, I've already sent instructions to our forum, announcements forum, sa ating in our for what to do for this week and the next. But from this webinar, we expect you to create a short reflection paper regarding what you have learned on these talks, on yung nagpa-inspire sa'yo and so on. But yeah, medyo light lang naman siya, so don't worry about it too much. But that's it. Yeah. So you can find further instructions in our OVLE. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have further questions, pwede nating isama yon doon sa ating reflection paper na isasama. Kung masyadong technical yung questions or very addressed to our speakers, we can forward these questions as well. But some of the feedback, depende doon sa questions, some of it we can already answer then as your instructors. Okay, so again, we thank our speakers, Ralph and Josh, for gracing us with their presence, with their knowledge today. We hope to see you again some other time. And for our students, so if you have questions again doon sa ating class, so message lang doon sa ating instructors. Okay. On that note, we end our first webinar. Our next webinar, it's actually a lecture. Next lecture is scheduled 2 weeks from now, but we have a class next week. We'll have we'll have a class next week. Okay. So on that note, keep safe and have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Sir Jeff,
po, sir.
pagtapos na yung live stream.
Thank you po.